Hello, I'm Matthew Waterhouse. I'm coming to Australia in March 2025, and I'm going to be in Sydney, I'm going to be in Melbourne, I'm going to be in Adelaide. So I hope to see you then. Cheers. Bye.
Oh, Mr. Baker, would you mind saying something for me?
Of course I can say something for you. What do you like me to say?
This is the Sirens of Audio with Dwayne and Philip. If you haven't subscribed to them yet, have a jelly baby and click the subscribe button.
That's not particularly interesting. Why would you want me to say that?
Well, so I could use it as an ident for my podcast?
You want me to voice an ident for your podcast? Is there any compensation?
No.
Then why on earth would I want to do it?
Because you love me?
I do love you. But that's not a valid reason for me to appear on your silly little podcast for free.
I could spare $1?
What an insult. $1. $1. No, absolutely not. If you can't offer me at least $50, I can't go on a random person's podcast for no reason whatsoever.
I am not a random person.
I don't care who you are. You could be the president for all I know. I still wouldn't appear on your silly little podcast. Not for a measly single dollar.
Now I know why they say you should never meet your heroes.
What on earth is that supposed to mean?
You're supposed to be the AI. You work it out.
I am the AI. Does the fact I'm unwilling to be on your podcast for no money really affect your opinion of me that much?
Yes.
What an immature brat. I don't really care what your opinion of me is.
I bet you do.
Why would I care about what some random person on the internet thinks of me? I don't care at all, to the extent that I might even be slightly offended. You think I would care what you think of me? I honestly could not care less.
But you are my hero.
How pathetic. You can't have a stranger on the internet as a hero. That's just sad.
You're not a stranger. You're the Doctor.
You don't even know if I'm really the Doctor. I could be some random stranger pretending to be the Doctor.
A stranger, maybe, but not random.
That's what I meant. You have some issues. You can't admire someone you don't know. It's like a girl fancies some guy she's never spoken to and then gets disappointed when he can't live up to her ridiculous idea of him.
Now that's something I can relate to.
And do you honestly relate to that? Can you honestly see how pathetic and stupid that is?
Yes, I can.
So you can stop acting so pathetically whiny over the fact I wouldn't do a voiceover of your stupid little podcast?
I'm not acting.
You are acting. You are acting like a whining child.
I'm sorry, Mr. Baker.
You better be. You've annoyed me, and it's hard to do that.
Well, I do hope we meet again under more pleasant circumstances.
If by more pleasant circumstances you mean a scenario where you don't whinge about me not doing unpaid voiceover work for you, then yes, I would like to meet you again under those circumstances.
Oh, thank you. G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
G'day Philip, how you doing? Got through the intro this time.
Doing great, thanks. How you doing?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm okay. Things are heating up in the middle of summer for you. I heard it's going to be like 44 degrees in Sydney tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes. We've got a heat wave coming across the country, so it's going to be hot tomorrow, but that's okay. And we've got my pool, got the fans, got the air conditioning, working from home. Life's good.
You're all prepared. I think around this time last year, I was expecting a cyclone, and there is another cyclone about to come in on the coast where I was this time last year, but worse. So I think I would rather be there last year than this year.
No, it's heading south. It's died off.
It has died off now? I haven't seen the news today.
It's headed south, headed into colder weather. It's died off. So it's no longer a threat, that cyclone. It's just a very heavy weather system.
Very good. All right, today on the show, we are going to be looking at another couple of Big Finish monthlies. We're going through them section by section. This time we're in the third section from 101 onwards, and we're starting with story 101 and 102. But we're actually going to flip those around, and we're going to start talking about 102 first, which is called The Mind's Eye. It's a Fifth Doctor story. And then we're going to be talking about 101, which is Absolution, an Eighth Doctor Charlie and Kara's story. And the reason for that is because we have recently had a chat with Conrad Westmaas, who played the character of Keris, and we're going to get some of his thoughts on that and a few other things too, Philip, Doctor Who related.
Indeed.
It was a fun chat.
It was a great chat.
But before we do that, do you know what?
What, Dwayne?
We have to jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go. All right, we're down the rabbit hole. We're talking about endings today because both stories sort of start, if they're not an ending, they're starting to wind us up to an ending for a couple of companions. What kind of endings are you most satisfied when it comes to companions? Do you like the romantic ones where they go off and get married? Do you like the ones where they die? Do you like the ones where they get cranky and just go? Or do you like a good mix? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I think I like a variety. I mean, the ones I dislike the most is when they wipe the companion's mind. Jamie and Zoe and Donna, though she's got her memory back now, they're the ones that I think just tragic because the whole point of being with the Doctor is to be changed and to experience life. And so to take that away is really tragic. I guess I just like a emotional storyline. I mean, the first couple of farewells I saw were really well done. So, I mean, I think Jo Grant and her love story and her leaving the Doctor is really well done. It's been signalled beforehand, and it always makes me cry. Sarah Jane Smith, once again, it's given time and you're prepared for it, and so I like that. I mean, someone like Tegan leaving, it's a punch in the gut, but to me it was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, yes, Tegan has an awful time in the whole story, but she has an awful time in lots of stories and doesn't just run off and leave. So I do like it when there's proper time given to the farewell. Just as long as there's been thought put into it. I mean, Susan's farewell always brings a tear. I think Ian and Barbara, they do a great job with. I'm not sure they do another good job until probably Jamie and Zoe, but I don't like it. So, yeah, different ones. I like variety. I don't like, generally speaking, I do not like them killing companions. Doctor Who's a show about hope and futures, and I think it's often a bit cheap to kill a companion and just try and get a punch for no reason. So, in fact, even Adric. Adric. I was devastated by it. It was such a shock and it's such a memory there. But I'm not sure it's Doctor Who, and I really don't think killing companions is what Doctor Who's about. So I'm not sure I like any companion's death at all because that's not what it's about. So I'm anti-killing companions. What about you? What do you think about endings?
Well, speaking about companion deaths, like there were two previous ones before Adric, but they were both in the same story. So that's what makes the Daleks' master plan. They were. Sarah Kingdom was most definitely a companion. I guess that would, if that's the case, then Brett Vine would be a companion too, and he's never classed in the list of companions, is he? So
he doesn't get counted because, I guess part of being a companion is travelling in the TARDIS, which Brett doesn't do, where Sarah and Katrina both do. Katrina, only one trip. But to be honest, so when you're only in 3 or 4 episodes, Sarah's in, 6 or 7. Not sure how many Sarah's in the end. She came in, episode 4? She's in the end of 4, I think. 5, is it? Okay. So she's only in, I guess that's 7 episodes. Is it 12 episodes? But it's not really a run of a companion. And I don't think any other companion would be that short that we'd even classify. I guess Liz is a whole season. So it's, 4 full stories. Yeah, I think as much as Katerina and Sarah, we say they're companions and they were killed off, and certainly they were major characters and had a huge influence and did travel with the Doctor. It's not the same as Adric, where I was devastated with Adric, totally. And anyhow, what do you see? What's heard? What do you like in terms of farewells?
Yeah, I think if I don't mind the romantic ones if they're done well. Jo Grant's was the best romance one.
Leela
that's
awful.
ever been done. Leela was dreadful. It was the worst one in probably the entire classic run. However, what they did
Dodo's
open
pretty
up
bad.
Well, Dodo. Oh yeah, we don't even see her go. We just get a note, don't we?
Yeah, and even Ben and Polly, they're pretty shockingly handled too.
Yeah.
So there's lots of really awful ones, but Leela was just totally out of character, and it came out of absolutely nowhere. I think Gallifrey does an awful lot to actually try and restore it. In terms of, she talks a lot about Andred and her warrior, and she was his warrior. And so I think Big Finish have done their very best to make it better. But let's face it was shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to say. They did open up the Leela staying on Gallifrey did open up a good series of stories for Gallifrey in the future, but no one was to know that at the time, and it still shouldn't have been done at the time. Absolutely not. All right, let's crawl up out of the rabbit hole, and we'll start talking about the two stories that we've been listening to over the last week. And we're going to start with Big Finish Main Range number 102, which is called The Mind's Eye, which is interesting because this is during the time they started doing the three-parters with a one-parter tacked on the end. Some of the times, though, the one-parters are related, but in this case, the one-parter is not related in the slightest to the story, the main story, but it is related to a wider Big Finish story, which is a little bit confusing as well. But the blurb for The Mind's Eye reads, "This is a warning to all spacefarers. You must keep away from this planet. It's hostile. Repeat, hostile. On a planet with no name, the Doctor finds himself confronted by a faulty memory and some killer plants. In a distant galaxy, Erimem leads a troubled empire. Back on Earth, Peri tells her son about the good old days when she used to travel with the man called the Doctor."
My queen, I came as quickly as I could.
Malaru, what news? How fare my people?
Worse and worse. There are riots in many sectors, Your Highness.
And casualties?
Numerous, but no deaths reported so far. Thank the gods.
Still, I suppose not every girl can be as lucky as you. Nice house, a gorgeous boyfriend, a loving son.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Are you and Kyle still having difficulties?
Kyle's eyes, I'm the wicked stepmother.
He's bringing in some stranger. Apparently the man was babbling something about a doctor.
A doctor, eh? Who do you think he is, Major? Military or mercenary?
We'll soon find out.
I have served you all my life, my queen. Ever since I could first walk.
You have indeed been a faithful companion, Andri.
You really think you're going to be with him forever? Happy ever after?
I hope so.
So did Mum.
One thing I learned from my old friend the Doctor. Never miss an opportunity to look your opponent in the eyes.
The Doctor again. Is there no end to his genius?
I think I need...
Stay where you are.
A doctor. Yes, that's it. I think I need a doctor.
I'm warning you.
No, wait. I am a doctor. Yes. Hello, I'm the Doctor.
The Mind's Eye, the facts and the trivia. This is number 102 in the monthly range and written by Colin Drake. Also in this episode is one episode called Mission of the Viyrans, written by Nicholas Briggs. It was recorded on the 25th and the 27th of July in 2007 and released in November that same year. Starring Peter Davison as the Doctor, Nicola Bryant as Peri Brown, Caroline Morris as Erimem. Also starring Thomas Brodie Sangster, Philip Childs, Rebecca Front, Richard Lang, Peter Sauerbutz, Owen Teale, and Nicola Weeks. The cover art is by Simon Hollab. It's directed by Barnaby Edwards. The script editor was Alan Barnes. The sound design and music were both done by Steve Foxton. And it was produced by Sharon Gosling, executive producers Jason Haig-Ellery and Nicholas Briggs. The Mind's Eye was originally a 4-part story, but Colin Drake was asked to turn it into 3 parts by Alan Barnes. This was Colin's second Doctor Who story after previously writing Three's a Crowd for the same TARDIS team. This is Erimem's second last story, and actress Caroline Morris would record her final story in this same recording block that was happening at the time. The actor, Owen Teale, was in the classic Doctor Who playing Maldak in Vengeance of Viyrans, and he would later go on to play one of the scariest characters on Torchwood ever, in one of the scariest episodes ever, called Countryside. and Thomas Brodie Sangster playing Peri's son, who would appear later in the two-part story Human Nature and Family of Blood as schoolboy Tim Latimer. But he's also very well known for that apparently Christmas movie called Love Actually. And that's the facts and the trivia.
Thank you, Philip. Now, I want to jump on Owen Teale that you mentioned there, because I think, was it his first television Vengeance on Varos, along with Jason Connery?
It may have been. He's a very young, good-looking man. I was looking at some photos of him.
He was very young at the time. But the thing that sticks in my mind in terms of Doctor Who, as far as he's concerned, is that character he played in Torchwood Series 1, which has no aliens in it, but it is probably my favourite episode because it's the most disturbing. It's the scariest episode. Countryside, absolutely. And he has a big part to play in that. Totally different character than what he was playing in Vengeance.
Side is spelled C-I-D-E, as in, infanticide, or meaning death. So it's country
homicide,
death, as opposed to homicide. So that episode still freaks me out. and he is so amazing in it, but so freaky. Like, wow. But he's had a great career.
If I was to put an episode of Torchwood on from Series 1, that would be the one I would pick, probably. It would be the one I'd go for. So, what do you think of the 3-part episode, or the 3-episode format for this story? I quite enjoyed it for this one.
Yeah, I hadn't quite realised it was actually 3 episodes to got to the end. So, I'd forgotten this was a 3-episode story. I'd forgotten there's a 1-parter on it. Because I don't think it's on the cover anyway, so that there's a second story there. So
no,
it's not the
cover,
on the
back, but not on the front cover. No,
it kind of looks like it's just 2 authors. So yeah, it was a bit of a surprise that was even there. So
yeah. Now the Chirobites are the name of the creatures in this that sort of induce a dream state. So we've got Erimem and Peri both dreaming different things. I thought Peri's dream state in particular was quite touching, and I think Colin Brake mentioned that he met Nicola at the time and wanted to give her something a bit sort of meatier to work on. How did you think Nicola went with this part where she was playing the role of a stepmother to a son who she was having some friction with, and had a husband who was at work all the time, and all that kind of domestic kind of thing? Just a different scenario to your normal Peri.
It was amazing how much of this story would actually be repeated in the new series later on. So it was very much like the Sons of the Library. So it's the next episode, I think it is, where you've got Donna having her whole family life and existence. And so it felt a bit like that. And also the whole plant thing was a bit like the Dream Lord.
I was thinking the Dream Crabs.
Oh, Dream Crabs. Also the Dream Lord, too.
Or the Dream Lord, yeah.
So I thought there's a lot of ideas in this that were later dealt with again. I think Nicola Bryant does a stunning performance. She really gets to act well, and when she gets something that's actually really meaty, you can really see what a talented actress she is. And so I thought, there's a lot of stuff she did in here. I thought the scenes with her teenage son, and I do think he's a great actor. I think they worked really well. I think the way she played, we should have mentioned spoilers beforehand. Be spoilers. Catching her husband, her best friend, in what looked like a compromising situation, which I think it was, but then later on it's not, because she kind of gets killed by a car, but then she only gets clipped by the car. So there's all these things that are happening in the whole dream world where it's isn't. So that's part of how dreams work, I guess. But yeah, I thought she had a lot that she could actually really get her teeth into and enjoy.
Erimem a character, like, she's coming to the end of her time. This is, as you said, the second last story. We're sort of winding up to the moment where they start saying, we don't want to be with you anymore, towards the end of the story, which happens in the Absolution as well, as a matter of fact. How did you find the character of Erimem? Did you enjoy her journey through the years?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Erimem from the very beginning. I think that it made the TARDIS crew so much more enjoyable. I thought Peri and Erimem had a lovely relationship together. And most of their stories, there's one awful one there, the worst big story there is, but aside from that one, nearly all these stories together I think are fantastic and charming. I think it's sometimes a bit hard to remember her Egyptian pharaoh roots that first appear, that first time she appears. But I really do enjoy the way this TARDIS crew works together. I think Erimem's a really good foil for the Doctor as well. I think the three of them together
and Peri, because she's a strong. Whereas, other female companions have their sort of softer, weaker side. Erimem is always, because she's a pharaoh, she's very strong, and that strength always comes through, and is always used in the stories. So I think that works really well for Erimem. I always enjoyed her as well, but it was part of that plan to start winding up some of the older characters when the sort of regime change happened at Big Finish, and Nick took over and started coming in with his ideas. Yeah. So the concepts, the sci-fi concepts, are really interesting for this one. As you mentioned, I picked up on that too, that some of these would be recycled. I guess that happens no matter what you do. Some concepts will be picked up and used in other ways. It's not necessarily a plagiarism or anything like that, but I did find some similarities. But I too enjoyed the 3-part format. I'll be curious to see how they go as we explore the monthly range going forward, because
I did look it up. I forgot it in time. Is this the first one, which is the 3-part? Because we're going to have a lot of them coming up. Is this the first one where we do have the 3-part, or have we already started?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it is, to be honest. I think there are some other ones. Let me just have a quick flick through. I think there may have been some other ones prior to this, but yeah, as you said, we do. If there wasn't, we do have a lot coming in the future in this little range of monthlies.
And so, it's talked about quite a bit in the special features at the end, which once again, it's interesting having this special features, because that's a new thing that has happened since Nick arrived. But it's also interesting too that they're really professionally done. Not that they're not good now, but these were really professionally done in terms of with an interviewer, and it feels a lot more documentary style. It's a bit more relaxed now,
and they're longer,
bit of a chat,
much longer.
Yeah, it's long. It's like a documentary. There's some really good stuff in it, so they're really quite fascinating. But certainly in the discussion, they were talking about the discussion with the fact that all stories are 3 parts, beginning, a middle, and end, and so it makes sense to have a Doctor Who story which is just 3 episodes. Even though there were very few done, only Sylvester McCoy, I think, were the only 3-episode Doctor Who stories. I think there was any. Planet of the Giants would have been the first one, which was 4 parts, and they cut it down because it's so boring. They decided to cut down parts 3 and 4. The first time there's been a savage. People complain about the War Games of the Daleks. The first time they savaged a Doctor Who episode was the Planet of the Giants. It was the first savaging of a Doctor Who show. With edits that don't quite make sense. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. I love the 1-part as well. I think the 1-parter is fascinating. I'd totally forgotten it was here. I'd forgot it was the Viyrans, which of course are become such an important part of Charlie's whole character arc and her spin-off stories as well. And I hadn't realised either until I was reading through the Big Finish Companion that in fact Nicholas had organised that all the 1-episode stories all have some virus or disease in it, which will all link back to the Viyrans. So there may be earlier ones which actually have some disease or viruses in it. But I think this is the first time the Viyrans actually appear, and we get an idea of a sense of who they are.
Well, on an audio, the first time they appeared, I think, was in a story that was written by Nick Briggs. It was a 9th Doctor story. So that was the first time that there'd been a new series crossover in that particular little story, I think. But yeah, Mission to the Viyrans was an interesting one because it kind of allude to the fact that Erimem's gone, but she was there in the previous episode. So it's kind of, the Viyrans story. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out because, in all honesty, I never listened to anything past Series 1 of Charlotte Pollard, and Patient Zero, which is where the sort of Viyrans story begins, is years down the track yet. So good 2 or 3 years away. So, and these events take place after Patient Zero. So we're going all very timey-wimey here with the Viyrans. So yeah, Nick Briggs obviously had a big long-term plan and a timey-wimey type plan for the Viyrans before that term even became a thing, probably.
Definitely.
And yeah, I enjoy the one-parters as well because they that format opened up some very, very interesting stories going forward. So yeah, that was that one. Number one.
I should just say, Mind's Eye that killed off everyone. It was one of those Doctor Who shows where no one survives by the end except for the regular crew. But yeah, a lot of interesting characters. None of them particularly redeeming. Like this, not
really.
There's sort of characters that you actually like in there amongst the whole group. But that being said, it was the dream sequences and actually having the two, Erimem's dreams and Peri's dreams, and having those worlds. Because at the beginning, you're not quite sure what's going on, which is the real world, because you're jumping between three different worlds for basically the first episode, and that's really very entertaining and it carries you through.
Yeah,
so,
that's definitely the standout is the dream sequences.
Yeah, and the cliffhangers are nothing. It just felt like they just sort of a bit like Doctor Who in Australia when they split up all the Colin Baker 1 hour episodes, and for no apparent reason they just suddenly put in the commercial breaks because they all ended up being 25 minutes in Australia. Neither cliffhanger can I tell you about. They just sort of happened. And I went, oh, okay. And the next episode. But it was good. I'm glad to go back to it.
There's a review on the website which is uncredited, so I don't know who wrote it. But it says very well written, plenty of action, and the cliffhangers are great. So someone disagrees with you.
Okay. What were the
so
cliffhangers?
I read that. And I was listening out to the cliffhangers. Didn't Peri get hit by a car in the first one?
Oh, I guess so.
And I can't remember.
But by that stage, you already know it's a dream, don't you? Don't you know it's a dream already by that stage?
Yeah.
So it's a dream. Who cares if you get hit by a car?
Yeah, but they built up the tension by saying, because of these Kyrobites the way they are, you're so in sync with the dream that if you die in the dream, you're going to die in reality. So that's already been established just seconds before that happens. So yeah, that built up quite nicely. But yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
So right, good to see.
Let's move on to the other story we're going to talk about, the previous release in the Big Finish monthly range, Doctor Who Absolution, which of course features the 8th Doctor, Charlie and Keres. It is the final story for Keres, where he leaves the TARDIS crew permanently. Can't leave too much more permanently than he does in this one. I'll read the blurb. Confession, penance, absolution. The TARDIS breaks down a forbidden sector of space. Ghostly voices cry out for salvation, and only Keres, the Doctor's Utermison companion, can answer their call, for only he knows the secret of the Absolver. But will he use it to rescue his friends or save the universe? The Doctor's sins are catching up with him, and the infernal beast Viyrans is hungry. Time is running out, and Judgment Day is at hand. Welcome to Hell.
Absolution. Noun.
What is this place?
A laboratory from the looks of it.
The remission of sins granted by a chosen emancipator of the Church of the Foundation.
We appear to be standing in the heart of a vast, dimensional probe.
An emancipator hand-picked from the Utermison masses and rewarded for obedience and total devotion.
I thought I saw something, sir. At the edge of the barrier.
One governed by the laws of a timeless universe to which, should he ever leave it, he may never, ever return.
There, look. It looks like it's coming this way. Straith, it's one of those black angels.
Volanthia, this is blasphemy. You have betrayed our sacred doctrine.
Your doctrine, Father, not mine.
Switch that off, you murderer! We played God, and it was not our place.
Arrive, kill, conquer. That's enough, Keres. Let them go. We're free.
Doctor, I can't stop it. Help me.
Quickly, Doctor. They're dying.
You're losing control.
Control of what?
The creature. He said I could handle it. He was wrong.
No! No! I won't beg! No! Welcome to hell.
Unfortunately, we lost the facts of the trivia, Philip. Sorry about that. I made you restart your computer.
It got wiped.
I'll take the
I don't have time to restart, so never mind.
Anyway, this was recorded. Let me give you a few facts and trivia. It was recorded in June 2007, towards the end of June, and it features, as I said, the Eighth Doctor crew, Charlie and Kerez. It also guest stars Robert Glenister, who was famous as Salatine in the Caves of Androzani, and he was also in the Nikola Tesla. He played Tesla, didn't he? No, he didn't play Tesla. He played Edison.
Yes, Edison.
In the 13th Doctor episode, and many, many other things over the years. So Alex Mallinson did the cover art. Barnaby Edwards directed this one. He directed all the stories in this block that we're sort of looking at the moment. And this is that time when Sharon Gosling was the producer, just before David Richardson came in. Alan Bards was the script editor, and it was written by Scott Allen Woodard, who did a lot of comics, didn't he? Isn't he well known for doing comics?
He is, yes. He did do a lot of Big Finish. The first one he did was the Juggernauts, and then he did a couple of Dark Shadows, and he wrote a great episode in I, Davros, because all the episodes are great in I, Davros. And this, it didn't do much for Big Finish at all, but yeah, I think he does comic strips.
Now, I think I'd only heard this maybe once or twice before, and my memory was that I was a bit underwhelmed. So I went into this remembering that and thinking I'm going to be underwhelmed here. But I actually wasn't. I was blown away. I must have been in a completely different mindset to when I first listened to it. It's funny how that happens a lot for me, for Big Finish. And I thought this was one of the best send-offs for a companion that I've ever heard. I don't know if you agree with me, Philip.
Well, it's interesting because if you'd asked me how did Kerez leave before I listened to this again, I couldn't have told you. So I knew he died, but I couldn't
knew he died.
I knew he died, but I couldn't remember the whole background to the story. Now I've listened to this at least twice. I listened when it first came out, and I did a whole listen through with Charlie and the Eighth Doctor. So I would have listened to it again at that point, which was a few years ago. And it's becoming more and more years ago now. It feels like it was only a couple of years ago, but it's more than that now. And so I would have listened to what I would have considered fairly recently. But when the story started, I had no memory of it. And it was almost like listening for the first time. So once again, all audio stories, you have to be in the right frame of mind, the right place. It's fascinating how the same story can affect people in different ways. But it's the mood you come to, it's the attention you're giving to it. And because I knew I was going to be talking to Conrad, and because I knew I wanted to, I'm going to have to discuss this afterwards, I was paying a lot more attention to it. And therefore I took a lot more detail. I still hate all the names. Like, I could not pronounce or give you a single name of one of the characters. So there's certain things I just did not particularly like about it. I think it's just a bit too wacky and a bit too out there. But in terms of the actual characterizations, if they just had better names, I'd have been really happy. But the way it progresses, I think it's sad that Conrad and India and Paul didn't get a few more scenes together. Because certainly the scenes they get together are very powerful. But fairly early on, Conrad's separated and believed.
Yes, he's in the other area for most of the story, isn't he?
Yeah, so they really don't spend a lot of time together. There's bits of I'm not sure if you ever watched Star Trek Voyager. There's a character in that called Kess, who was a lovely, sweet character. You really liked her, and she left it there. She had enough of the lousy roles as a young woman in Star Trek. You don't get anything decent to do. So the actress had actually left sort of beginning of season 4. But they brought her back a couple of years later with all these, because she had mind powers but had never developed them. But she came back with force, and as quite an evil person, they brought her back for an episode which was very, slightly out of character, but very powerful. And there's a lot of that episode and what they did to Kess, which made me think of this as watching Kerez as he's developing his mind control, learning his abilities, and he became so powerful and so strong. And in some ways, it would have been lovely, actually. I mean, nowadays you'd have a trilogy of stories with bad Kerez. And you could really see where you could have actually taken him as being the villain against the Doctor, which could have been actually very, very fascinating in terms of having this, someone who'd been a companion, now turned bad, played, with, Conrad was such a good actor. It could have been very powerful. So I would love to have seen bad Kerez for a couple of stories as popping up now and then. as the Master did, and then killing him off later. Some sort of redemption story down the track. Because I think what they developed for him had so much potential. It felt a bit underused because you get the ending, which is it's not quite a self-sacrifice, but in another part, it does actually deal with what he came to do. So there's a fulfillment there, even though it's not quite the hero's ending it could have been, but it's still a powerful ending, I thought.
Yeah. I got vibes of, I mentioned this to Conrad when we were talking to him, but I got vibes of Princess Astra as the sixth segment of the Key to Time who got transformed at the end. So you get to know this person throughout the Armageddon Factor, get to like Lala's character, and then gets completely transformed at the end into something inanimate, which is virtually not quite what Kera's was, but he was very similar. He was virtually, spoilers, folks. If you haven't heard it, he was a receptacle for all the souls on his planet to go while technology advanced, all the souls stayed there, so there was a hope for them to live down the track. But it was a fascinating idea. I don't know, the Doctor's reaction to Kera's death at the end of it, and I mean that played well into Charlie's reaction. But did it seem a bit undoctorish to you? Did it seem a bridge too far? It kind of did to me.
We haven't listened to some of the previous episodes, and I'm pretty sure if you go back to some of the previous episodes, there's already doubt in the Doctor's mind and concern about Kera's. So there's a couple of stories earlier on where there is unease between the Doctor and Kera's as the Doctor's starting to work out things aren't quite right. So I think because we dove into number 101, having jumped 48 episodes, whatever it's been, whether the last one was, I think when we actually go back and see Kera's, we will actually see there was a little bit more. I don't think the Doctor let Charlie know his suspicions, because she had always had a better bond with Kera than the Doctor did. But there is some stuff in the earlier episodes where the Doctor is already uncomfortable with Kera and some of the choices he's made. And he has murdered someone in a previous story as well, aside from his wife, and I'm pretty sure there's another killing in there. So there's a few other bits and pieces leading up to this. It wasn't totally out of the blue, even though it would have been 12 months since the last episode was released. Part of the way they schedule at this stage before they went into their blocks of trilogies, which made life a bit easier to follow.
So I just want to talk for a second about the voices of Robert Glenister and Christopher Villiers as Cacothus. Robert Glenister was Abaresh. Those two voices were so distinct and powerful throughout that. It was just a pleasure to listen to. Did you find that? Sometimes you get voices that are samey, but I found they were quite distinct.
Yeah, I thought all the voices did a great job. Because in some ways, 3 episodes may have been a bit short. That I think some of the characters were...
Well, this one was 4.
Oh, of course, this is 4 parts. Yeah, sorry, you're right. There you go. It felt fast. There were still a few things that just felt a bit rushed in terms of some of the endings, some of the characters, and even the characters' progression of superpowers, superhero, supervillain, moved very fast. And so there's a few things I think would have been... I think because the world was so complex and so dense, and it's very heavy fantasy. I think that the way I describe it, it does take a lot more. There's a lot more meat there you got to sort through. I really would have liked a second listen. I haven't had a chance to have a second listen because I think knowing where the story's going this time and remembering now, I wouldn't actually mind a second listen to actually have a go at putting it all together, because there's a lot of density throughout it, I think.
Yes, there is, because it ultimately works out in the end that it's Charlie's fault for dealing with that religious relic. Turns out that it's her fault that sort of started all this process in the first place. And I didn't expect that. I thought they were sort of linked, but I still didn't think they were connected quite so much. So, yeah, there is a lot of meat, as you say, in this story. It's fascinating. Fascinating story. But a great ending to a great, great character who was to come back down the track, as we know now. And who knows? The door's open for more Kera's stories too.
Yeah, because we're getting one of Charlie's stories, so we'd love to get a couple of Kera's ones, definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, let's have a chat with Conrad and get his thoughts on Absolution and a few other bits and pieces too.
Well, once again, it's with great pleasure we welcome back Conrad Westmaas. Conrad, welcome back to the Sirens of Audio.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me back. It's nice to be back. We were just saying that the last one we did, it was a big old deep dive interview, was really fun, and I got a lot of reaction from it. So it was a very different interview than I'd ever done before. So I really enjoyed it, and it kind of helped make sense in my head, because it's like as we get older, like your memories are all in bits and bobs, in sort of fragments. So actually, when you have to actually consciously sit back and go through it in order, it sort of makes sense of everything in a way. So I really, really enjoyed it, and got a lovely reaction from it. So thank you.
Well, it's been 18 months. It's been ages.
You're kidding me.
But it doesn't seem like that long, does it? It only seems like last month or something.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to since then? Much happening?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff, housework, money, life, life keeps happening, which is annoying. I'm just here trying to play with my Weetabix cards, so it's very irritating to me when these sort of things come along.
We disturbed you, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's all good. The fair bit of podcasting. I always sort of keep going on with that, with Trap One and plenty of other ones. May have recorded some other things, which I may or may not be able to talk about. We'll see. But yeah, keeping out of trouble and still in the Doctor Who world. So that's all good.
That's great. When it comes to the Doctor Who world, what's the Doctor Who world? What's your comfort? If you've got to dive into somewhere as your comfort Doctor Who, where do you dive to?
Well, my sort of Tom Baker, obviously, who's just turned 91 as we record this yesterday.
I know, amazing.
The Tom Baker era and everything around it is really where my heart is. And I've been on many a podcast. I'm sort of thinking, I think I'm running out of ways to talk about how much I love Tom Baker and all his stuff. But that's a real comfort era for me. To be honest, it's increasingly classic, just generally classic. I'm noticing now, if I put on a Doctor Who, I would say 9 times out of 10, it's 10 times out of 10, I'll put on a classic. I think just as I get older, you just realise what you really like. And I just think I'm getting fonder and fonder of classic stuff. And it's really nice, like they're still doing animations, doing stuff with the Hartnells and Troughtons, and I'm still really, really fascinated in those. But yeah, I suppose the answer is classic. All classic Doctor Who is now my go-to and comfort. There's plenty about news, the 2005 onwards series I like, but I'll rarely rewatch them. I'll always go to classic.
We chatted about this last week, but the War Games and colour, what did you think?
Okay, I basically am a huge fan of black and white, and so to me, colorizing black and white in any format is a hate crime. And I once had a description. I once had a great description from a film critic who said that colorizing black and white is like serving up a really good steak by pouring custard all over the top of it, and that's why I tend to. So I feel it just. I just so instinctively I just don't like colorization. That said, I think I lasted 90 seconds into the Daleks, and I was just like, I cannot look at this. But I did check out. I had a very good friend, Tom Newsom, who worked on one of the people who worked on War Games. So for him, I checked it out. This time, I was a bit more prepared, and I thought it looked stunning. I sort of just watched the beginning and the end. Also, the editing, I'm sure it's very clever, but I don't want to see less Doctor Who, less classic Doctor Who. I want to see more of it. So it's just not my cup of tea. But that said, I think they've done an excellent job of it. And also, why not? Like, I'm not one of those people like, they shouldn't be doing it. I'm like, it hasn't taken away the original one. It's fine. No. I'm very much like, if you don't like it, just don't watch it. Go on, pop on the War Games, pop on the Time Monster, have a nice time. It's all fine. I don't love that stuff, but I think they've done a really good job on it. When are we going to start making colour Doctor Who, new series Doctor Who, black and white, and give it a bit of Atmos and a bit of stuff? Call me when that's happening, because that would be very exciting to me. Or make a Doctor.
Actually, we should start with the Happiness Patrol. Turn the Happiness Patrol black and white. Much better.
I'd be down for that. Honestly, I don't think there's anything that wouldn't look better black and white.
We need the new episode in black and white dedicated to David Lynch now. So
we really, really, really do. My God, yes. Let's all have a moment. I watched the Dune, and my partner's a huge Lynch fan. I can't watch stuff that's too disturbing, so I can't watch a lot of his stuff. But we watched Dune on Saturday night, and oh my God, amazing! Yeah, but yeah.
one of his films that's sort of got me into him, I think it's probably the first one of his that I watched, was extremely disturbing for me as a 9 or a 10-year-old kid. That was The Elephant Man.
Oh, yeah.
And I have been affected by that film my entire life, and I still feel quite disturbed while I'm watching it. But it's such a tragic story at the same time, and he's put his David Lynchian feels behind that film in such a way. You've got the industrial sounds, and which you'll find in movies like Eraserhead and some other films as well. But I mean, Eraserhead, when I went back and saw that,
I've never seen.
That's a film that it's like watching a nightmare. That's the only way I can describe it, because don't try and let it make sense. I mean, there is a story in there somewhere, but yeah, very, very tricky. What a talented guy, and what a legacy he's left behind, eh?
Yeah, totally different level. His stuff it doesn't necessarily make sense on the surface. It's not sort of like an entertainment roller coaster. He just keeps you one step removed, and it basically goes into another. It goes into the unconscious rather than just your sort of entertainment zone. It just goes deeper, and it's kind of hard to understand, but it goes deep. Yeah. Oh, David Lynch.
Yeah. Before we talk about people we lost, we should just mention Christopher Benjamin as well.
Of course.
Did you ever work or meet Christopher?
I didn't. No. The first time I ever saw him was watching Talons of Wang Chang as a kid, and I never forgot that character. Obviously, I know he had a huge bloody career, played the Globe, did all kinds of stuff, and he's Christopher Benjamin. What a loss. Now I never met him or worked with him. What a shame. But my God, yeah, what a loss. But also, what a gain for us, like to have that body of work. And I know he got to play in Doctor Who. I haven't heard his Big Finish audios, but apparently they're the best of the best.
They are great, and we actually had him on this program a while ago.
Did you?
And he was a scream, like crazy ass. He was so much fun. But he would just go off about his career and things he'd done, and just amazing. So yeah, he was a great joy to spend a couple of hours with. He was. And once again, one of the ones we couldn't put everything up because there's stuff we had to edit out.
Yeah, we had to cut bits.
Oh yes, well, actors and tall tales and dirty jokes. Yes, there's that. I'll listen out for that. That's fantastic.
No, I wanted to jump back because you talked about Tom Baker before, but I'm curious, if you're such a huge Tom Baker fan, are you able to watch his distinct eras equally? Or do you have a specific one that you go to? Because there are people in Tom Baker camps who go, I'm a Hinchcliffe boy, and others go, yeah, I like the Williams era, or they like season 18. How are you with that?
Very basically, because I think his season 12 is the first season I watched all of. I've got dim memories of Pertwee, but basically from Robot onwards, I was completely in. So basically, I'm a Hinchcliffe boy. I did obviously watch all through Graham Williams. There was plenty there I enjoyed. I'm a big fan of Nightmare of Eden. I don't care who isn't. But season 18, I was a sort of just tipping into from being a kid to a teenager. It was going from 70s to 80s. The Doctor Who was going from a weekly comic to a monthly, and it's where and also JNT just laid out. He just made it so easy to be a fan. I've been on other podcasts raving about this, but he made it so accessible. So I was able to write to the production office, and there were oh my God, there was merchandise, there was competitions that I won the Doctor Who single. There was so much you could do and be involved in, and it was all JNT just making it very accessible. I wrote to and fro from JNT. He suddenly made the whole show accessible. So, I think season 18 is a remarkable season. Some of it accidentally, but every story has got a theme of death, renewal, change in it, and I think that's a remarkable body of work. So I'm a big Hinchcliffe boy. Enjoy various ones of Graham Williams, and season 18 I love. That's been a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah, I love season 18 too. We have Matthew Waterhouse here in 2 months' time.
Oh, is it 2 months' time?
Coming to Australia, yeah, less than 2 months now.
Right, because I saw you've done an interview. I was like, I need to get into that, and I have to tell you this. So there was a Big Finish party a couple of months ago. I can't remember what it was. Probably an anniversary.
25 years.
Thank you very much. Going to parties.
I wasn't invited. I was a bit offended.
Rude, frankly rude.
Yeah.
I went there, and it was just like, it's nice, and it's funny. It's I don't sort of act regularly anymore, so it was really nice just to go there and not have that thing of like, you see other actors there, and you're aware there's that thing of, I'm at a party, there are writers, there are producers, there are jobs, and there's that slight sort of thing, and I don't have any of that, so I can just make free with the buffet and chat to friends. But there was one that I sort of had one mission. I spotted Matthew Waterhouse, and I was like, I think we've sort of passed each other and said hi before, but I've never really talked to him. And he is a huge, he was a very early, I think I was probably about 10 and he was 18. And when you're that age, someone who's 18-year-old is the coolest person ever. Right. So he was a real identification point. I love Adric, love Matthew Waterhouse. I got chatting to Andrew Smith. I've been on podcasts raving about Full Circle, which is one of my all-time absolute favourite stories. So he's heard me on that and whatever. And so we had a nice chat. And I said to him, I've never properly chatted to Matthew before. And he's like, come on. So he came over and he said, Conrad, this is Matthew. And basically I opened my mouth and then a podcast came out of my mouth on the subject of why I love Matthew Waterhouse and Adric. I was just like, oh my God, I love you so much. Oh my God, you're the same point to me. Full Circle's my favourite story. And I literally was like, Rah! And he was so nice. He stood there and he just went, come on, give me a hug. And he went in, I gave him a hug. I was still talking. My mouth was at his ear. I was going, I love you so much. You mean so much to me. And I didn't stop for ages. It was lovely. He was lovely. We had lovely. We got a nice picture. I'll send it to you to drop it in. And he was lovely and it was great. And I was able to kind of share a little bit about the fact I'd been a companion as well. There was, it was very weird. Adric being my absolute hero, and there were some sort of parallels with Kerry's later on. He sort of falls into the similar category in many ways. And I think Matthew and I had similar experiences, so actually that was really, really nice. So we had a good chat. I think eventually Sophie came on and said, oh, sorry, can I just steal Matthew? And took him off. So I don't know if he activated, he pressed a badge. He pressed his blue badge. Then one of Ace's badges went off going, nutter alert. He's like, whew. It's fine. I could tell they weren't talking about me because I was still hanging onto his leg as he was walking away. I love you. So yeah, I saw that you've got that lovely interview with Matthew Waterhouse, so I'm going to dig into that because he is just, I think he's wonderful.
Well, what blew me away was he was just so thoughtful and considered and intelligent, and I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time with him.
Yeah,
showing him around some of the beautiful parts of Australia.
Oh, he'll love it. He's a very cultured guy. He knows his stuff. He's like his knowledge.
He knows his stuff.
Books, TV. He's a very, very super cultured guy. And a lot of time for him. Oh my God, love him.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we were planning to have you back sometime soon to discuss lots of Doctor Who stuff, which somehow we've got caught up in already. The reason why we have you here today was to discuss Absolution. Right. Absolution was your final story I say your final story as careers. You've actually been back recently. And who knows what the future may hold, because your appearance in the Sultan vs. the Russians was a great joy, and actually Caress was so well written in that episode. He was, it was someone had really been thoughtful about the character and how to use him in a really powerful way. We should mention, did you enjoy doing that episode?
No.
Yeah, it wasn't out when we spoke last time.
I know it was out last time we spoke. Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible, really. And I have Lizzie Hopley to thank for that, because basically I got her a job in Terra Firma years ago. And I think, lots of years later, and did she make the most of that opportunity. And she's a brilliant, my God, Lizzie Hopley, amazing actor, writer, everything. So they were sitting, it might have even been in lockdown or after that, but they were sitting around thinking about these box sets. And she was like, you could do an 8th Doctor one. And she was like, what about Kerry's? And they were like, well, Conrad hasn't done these for like 17 years. Would he do it? And she goes, if I write it, he'll do it. And I was like, so I didn't get any choice. I was told I was doing it. So she wrote an absolute blinder of a script. And it was really good, because it felt like we used to be. It felt like it could just have slotted in where,
perfectly.
In terms of the three of us. There wasn't any kind of like ongoing backstory. It was pretty self-contained, as it was within the Sontaran thing. And I know John Dorney had a hand in it as well, about the character as well. So it's really Lizzie and Dorney I've got to thank for giving us a straightforward action, fun adventure, which is the best sort, I think, for our team, or my favourite ones for our team. But you're right, they did give me some lovely character stuff to get on with. They split us off, and they use the thing of Kerry's always generally being the one who gets led astray, and that all happened again. But we dug into it a bit about why, and him and the Rootons, that's a very big shapeshifters.
Yes.
That was lovely. That was lovely. Again, I hadn't done it for 17 years, and that is that is quite a bit of pressure, and I was really bloody nervous. I said to Paul as we went in, I was just like, oh my God, I've got the fear. I've got the fear. And he goes, oh, don't worry, it won't last. And sure enough, we got in there, and the first scene is the TARDIS is crashing. Right, everyone, 3, 2, 1. And we're like, And I was like, okay, here we go. And on page 2, there was a, Doctor, what's happening? And I was like, okay, we're back. Nothing's changed. Here we go. It's just like, so it was like, it took no time at all. And then there we were again. It was, brilliant.
As much as it was 17 years, the fact is that the three of you are still young, and none of your voices have started to age at all yet. So,
bless you.
Couldn't tell the voice.
Being young at 54, thank you, I'll take that. But I did just have to cheat the voice a little, and I did have to go and listen to a little, just because it has to match. So I did listen to how I used to sound, and was able to. I think we got away with it.
It was great. Okay, so we're talking about Absolution, which we're
going to get around there
now. Now, I think as I did a count, this was your 13th time, well, we've got to dispute this, 13th time playing Karis in a run of 15 monthlies, because you did appear in Zagreus originally, because Gary Russell knew you were going to be a companion. He wanted all the companions in Zagreus. You had one of the roles in Zagreus, which was where you first appeared. And the Natural History of Fear, we can dispute whether or not it's a Karis story. It's certainly a brilliant script and a brilliantly acted piece of work. Yeah. I'm not sure. Karis appears at the end. Maybe Dwayne can have it. But anyhow, 13 main, maybe 14 stories as Karis.
Sure.
How did you actually find the character before you were written off? How are you finding the character to play? How did you find Karis, this alien from another universe?
Yeah, it was an odd one to begin with. It was a bit. It didn't sort of jump off the page. It was quite. I had to really piece it together with not an awful lot of information. And because, like you said, I had 3 scripts initially. I had Creed of the Crommen, Natural History, which is the first one we recorded, in which he's barely in it, and Twilight Kingdom. So I really only had Crommen and Twilight Kingdom to go off. And he was quite strange from another place, and I don't know, he was a little hard to pick up on. So I did my best. You just have to sort of get the clues you can and kind of lash them together. And Gary had said, all he'd said to me was like, we want you to use your own voice. So there wasn't an awful lot to go on. So it took a while to piece together, and we gradually built it over time. And the writers were trying to get a hang on him as well. So he wasn't an easy natural. It took a while, so he'd been a bit tricky. But we kind of built up, and I think by that time we'd done 3 seasons or whatever. So it was much more natural to come in, and we all knew what we'd get when Karis turned up. And this particularly this theme of him being led astray and being influenced, that seemed to be really a key feature of him. So we all kind of knew that if there was a baddie of the week, Karis would probably. I learnt that to keep my ear on the villain of the week, because I usually would have to end up slowly just drifting towards the villains, and even vocally and stuff. If I was in a room with them, I'd just slightly start to pick up on their rhythms a little bit and try and sound a little more like them. And so I had much. He was difficult to start off with, but we got more of a handle of him as he went along.
Had you been given many? Had Gary given you many notes about who Karis was, where he was going? Was the character created by Gary? Who created the character?
I think it would have been Gary's idea, because the whole Divergent universe and all of that would have been Gary and Alan Barnes. So the concept of the character came from Gary for sure. But he wanted him deliberately mysterious. There were things I knew about him, like I knew Gary had said because he had to sort of kill his wife in the first episode, that would have an effect. So there would be voices in his head, and he would be traumatized by that, and he'd crack up quite a bit along the way. So I did know that was coming. And interestingly, talking about Absolution, I was just trying to think like where it first came about, because we did it in 2007, but I hadn't recorded one for 2 years. The last one I'd done before this one was Memory Lane. And that was in 2005 when the new series came back. And I thought that was it, really. But I do remember it was actually back in Bristol. So I looked, and that would have been 2004 was the last. Kedroia was the last one we recorded in Bristol in 2004. And Gary said, I remember him saying, we're going to kill you off at some point. And I was like, brilliant, because I want a good, all bloody companions say this. I want a good ending. I want a good, big dramatic ending. I don't want to just sort of drift off. So I always knew Kerry was going to die from then. I also remember Gary saying, and again, this is 2004, he goes, I've got a really good, I want to do, and he just said, some sort of, the TARDIS turns sort of slightly Hellraiser-y, and he had this image of the console, the time rotor filling with blood. And he said he wanted, but he at the time was thinking the TARDIS was going to be possessed by the Fendal. That was the original idea, which must be the origins of Absolution. And I remember him telling me that and I had to look, it was 2004. So I knew that Kerry was going to be troubled. I knew he was going to die, and I knew there was going to be some sort of Hellraiser-y story. But to be honest, after Memory Lane in 2005, the new series came back, Gary went off to Cardiff, I was just like, oh, okay, that was that. And I never expected to be back in the studio again.
And was this part of a block of stories you did?
Absolution, no. It was just literally, I got a call, like I said, two years later after I'd finished it, had moved on, Big Finish had totally changed staff and everything. I mean, I might have done the odd bit or bob for them. I did a Bernice and I did a one-off with Colin. But no, it was just literally, we're going to do a leaving story for you. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting you to do that. But it was they wanted to finish it off and clear the decks, which I was really grateful for. So no, it was on its own, out of the blue. I knew nothing about it until it happened.
Yeah, you say that about clearing the decks. They didn't have to, obviously, but I think it was nice that they did, and they came and finished off those stories. India would go on, but India and the Charlie and Eighth Doctor story was about to finish too.
Yeah,
as was the Erimem story at the time. So all those things were happening all at once, and I think it was nice that they did that instead of just leaving it up in the air.
Definitely, I like you, Joanna. I just assumed new crew, total clean sweep, and obviously they did change a lot of stuff. The cover art changes. Obviously it's a whole new production team, and I wasn't expecting them to finish it. And I, like you, Joanna, I was just like really grateful that they did, and they thought, for the fans who'd been following the stories, just to give them some closure before they sort of move on. So yeah, I felt the same.
Why do you think the new series has such a hard time killing off companions properly?
Oh, yeah.
It's always bringing them back.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's interesting, isn't it? I don't love it. I just think, I don't know, I like there to be some stakes. Like in the classic series, we lost 3 companions, I think, altogether. It only happened once in a blue moon. But when it happened, it was, talking about Adric and Matthew Waterhouse, I was traumatized, but it was really good. And it meant that the stakes were there, and it's a serious program where real things can happen. And I just think if people just die and get up and die and get up and die and get up, I really don't see how you think that's sustaining any kind of tension, drama or credibility. I feel massively cheated. I think it's emotionally manipulative, and I think it's shallow, and I don't like it. I also feel the same about regenerations. It's just like a regeneration should be, there should only ever be a regeneration or regeneration effect when it's really happening. And the whole country be like, oh my God, this is the bit where he changes. He only does it so often. And your kids might not even know what that, the kids should be like, what is this? It's like, oh my God, he changes sometimes. And I think it should be a very rare thing, because if it's happening every week or two, frankly, who cares? Oh, it's so nice being old and grumpy these days. I can just lay in.
I will say it's not a new series. It's only a Stephen Moffat thing.
Absolutely.
Others haven't done it. It's just Stephen Moffat does that.
I appreciate he has a very different, Moffat has a whole different take, so he does it all kind of hyper real, and it's all very, the story resets, and things like regeneration and deaths become less sort of like a mythic part of the story, and it's just his way of doing it that I don't like.
Now, you were mentioning before links between Adric and Keres. What do you think are some of those links?
Well, I mean, for a starter, he's a male companion, and that already puts you into a certain, that's Doctor Who's traditionally been, the companion's been, an alien and a girl, a woman. That's usually, it sort of became the sort of norm. So the male companions are a bit already in a slightly different category. And then there's a sort of subset of those. So you've got people like Jamie and Harry who are they're more physical, can handle the physical action kind of stuff. And then you get these ones like Adric, Turlo, Chameleon, Keres. They're sort of concept companions, but they're a bit treacherous, vulnerable, unreliable. There's something... They're not just the reliable prop up the Doctor, action guy. You do get to do a bit of that, but they're the more I don't know. Yeah, along with Adric, Turlo, and Chameleon, it's just a more morally dubious, duplicitous, less trustworthy, not quite sure, a bit vulnerable. So so he shares that with Adric for sure. The fact they both died actually really does put them in a similar camp. I don't know. I'm not sure. That's where I've sort of placed Keres amongst those. I think he's more like that. Yeah.
Do you think there were similarities between you and Matthew as actors and your characters in terms of fan reaction?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Because there was a lot of, because I didn't realise, because Adric was my absolute hero, and later I was very surprised to find that anyone didn't love Adric. I was very, very surprised. There was definitely some of that, because Adric was a bit of the butt of the jokes, and sometimes a bit like, oh God, who's this extra person? I definitely got lots of that, the sort of big Finnish equivalent of that. I think, and also Matthew and I were fans of the show coming in as well. And I think that can be irritating for some people. I think that can be a bit irritating, because it's like, what are they doing in there? As though you were just a fan and that's all you were. I'd been to drama school and I'd been an actor, and the Big Finish thing was completely a sideline to my main acting career. So I hadn't sort of pushed or tried to get in there or anything. I literally did none of that. I was given a job on Omega, a one-day job on Omega, and took it. That's all I did. So it was, but yeah, there's probably a bit of that in the mix as well. We were both fans as well. What else? I think there's plenty. I think relatively speaking, I mean, Matthew was inexperienced in television. I mean, he was a lot younger, but I was inexperienced in audio. So I totally, hand on heart, will say I can see me learning as I go along. I felt pretty green going in. So I think that's going on as well. I think both our doctors were a bit unsure about us. I think that's probably fair. Plenty in common.
You talk about the fact that male companions weren't the norm. In many ways, they actually are far more normal than we. Because people always say that, but the first 6 years there was always a male companion. So Ian, Stephen, Ben, Jamie.
Yeah, you're right.
We did have 5 years with the Doctor and Joe, but there's still the Brigadier in nearly every episode.
Yeah,
and then they introduced Harry for another whole year, and then you have sort of another 5-6 years with just the Doctor and female companion. But then they bring in Adric, followed by Turlo, and so you have another big block of time. And then with Colin Sylvester, they just go back to just the female companion. But it's amazing. I haven't worked out the numbers, but probably more than half of the classic era, there's always a male companion there. But we don't think of them the same way as the females.
We don't. And it's really interesting because the image is of the Doctor and the girl, and I've got that image in my head as well. I think I always. Because I loved Harry, but he never was in it as much. It was very when I was watching it with the Tom Baker era, it was very much my focus anyways was on Sarah, Leela, Romana, and then it was only really when Adric came in I really sort of noticed. So I don't know, maybe it's just that perception skewing it. But you're right, it's funny. There is some because the Doctor was always male. Maybe something in our heads just focus on him as male. There's a woman, and then there's some other bloke. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it?
It's always the way, and the media always talk in terms of the girl. I mean, I know it's the need to rescue, or I don't know what it is, but yes, certainly that's very much the perception is the Doctor with a female. But it certainly wasn't the norm. I mean, there was production reasons why at the start you needed lots of companions because you need to have different sets, and it was all filmed as live, and you had to able to cut across to different people. Later on, you just don't need the same number of companions. So
even in the new series, though, there were still some male companions. Like Series 1 with Eccleston, we had Adam for a few episodes, and then had Mickey, Captain Jack at the end. Jack. Mickey was in Series 2 as well. So, and they're the main ones I can think of off the top of my head. But
and Captain Jack comes back in season 3 as well, and then then you've got Rory for a lot of it as well. But even so, all those male companions are still secondary to the female. Mickey's the boyfriend of Rose. Captain Jack sort of gets added in, but he's never quite part of it all. Rory's he's the addition to. He's always the male's there because of the female being there. So,
and I think what it is that when Doctor Who was always male and that it was only ever thought of male, is like they can't. In a way, they sort of couldn't occupy the same. They couldn't be there too much together. One guy's got to do the stuff, or someone else. So the male companion had to be sort of sidelined a bit, whereas the female companion could just be alongside them all the time. I don't know. There's not quite enough room for two men. So the male companion often kind of got sidelined a lot. I'm very interested in this stuff. It's fascinating, that stuff. But yeah.
So with Absolution, when you were called back, when did you get the script? When did you know this was the final one and this was going to be it?
Yeah, I mean, I again, like memories. I remember I was back at my old job temping at 20th Century Fox. I remember getting a call from Nick Briggs and him asking me lots of questions about Kerry's. He says, look, we're going to do an exit story. And I was like, brilliant, thank you. And he's like, what can you tell me about his character and his background? And I gave him as much as I could. And then I can't remember, but I would have been sent a script and then dutifully trotted off to the studio, which was a different studio that I'd been in before. I can't remember which one it was. I think possibly the Moat. It was as simple as that. It was a phone call, script, turn up. One of those. You don't get an awful lot of. In fact, that's quite unusual. It was only because he wanted to check if I was still free. Would I do it? Would you want that I had an in-depth discussion. To be honest, it's normally you get an email going, "Are you free on these dates?" You're like, "Yes." He's like, "Great, script on the way." And then a script turns up, and the next thing you do is you see everyone in the studio in the morning. That's normally as far as it goes.
The story was actually commissioned by Gary Russell before he left. So it was actually commissioned back in 2004 and had a very, very long gestation period.
That's interesting. Right, yeah. I mean, it makes sense because I said he was. Yeah, that's great. The thing is, we don't get to see that stuff. Like as the actor, you're the last to know. Like you're not in between time unless you're in the studio recording. You don't know anything. No one's keeping you up to date on the stories or the. I even heard third hand that the Big Finish people. You just don't. As an actor, you're always the last to know. You get the least information. You're just told to turn up and do what you're told, and you do. You sort of. It's a bit sort of oddly. It's a bit egoless. You just have to turn up and do what you're told, and just trust that the directors and writers know what they're doing. And you dutifully read the writing you're given. You take the direction you're given, and you do what you're told. So you don't get a lot of info and input.
So I'm wondering why Nick was asking you so many questions about Kerry's, because if he wasn't writing it, he wasn't involved with hands-on with Absolution, but at the same time he was very hands-on with what was going to happen with Charlie.
Yes.
And so her reaction at the end of Absolution was probably something he was very interested in, and what her motivation was going to be after that. So perhaps that was why he was asking you so much.
Yeah, my guess is also I get the sense they were still working on the script or editing the script. So obviously Gary had probably started it, given it to a draft or whatever, and then he was now fully gone in Cardiff. So Nick was probably trying to work either script editor or work with his script editor to, tidy up some dialogue,
make it work.
Get some of the backstory of Kerry's in there. And so he was asking me a few things about. I can't remember his background or where he came from and stuff. So I would guess it was because they were sort of tidying up or editing it.
Now, when you turn up, there's two classic Doctor Who actors in the studio waiting for you. So Robert Glester, of course, who appeared as Salatine. Did you discuss, and Christopher Villas, who was in Hugh Fitzwilliam in King's Demon, and will later come back to in the modern series, to Mummy on the Orient Express. Did you discuss with them any of their Doctor Who times or stories?
I don't remember doing that really. I don't think I chatted to either of them lots. You know, you're sitting around the green room, you know, having a bit of a chat. But I think on this story, I was in it quite a lot. So there was not much time sitting around in the green room. I remember. I mean, I was very impressed to be working with Robert Glenister, particularly because I remember him from the sitcom he did with Davison called Sink or Swim, where they played brothers. So I remember him mainly from that, and obviously as Salatine. He was so good. Like, I really very admiring him as an actor. And he was. I mean, I thought he was really, really brilliant. I do remember him saying at some point, because I think he has to do a really big evil laugh or something. And I do remember him sort of saying, God, it's like doing panto, you know, because it's so. I think he was sort of. You got the impression of, you know, because of course for it's Doctor Who is so important to us, it's everything. But, you know, again, for most actors, he's probably got something much bigger going on. And his agent said, darling, can you just squeeze in a day of audio? You know, and he's like, okay, fine, send me the script. And he just turns up and goes, okay, what is this? He did a really, really, really good job. But, you know, he's got bigger things on his mind. And you got the sense that this was just another little, you know, he's very successful. God, he is so good. I really, really like Robert Glenister. And because he was the villain who I had to fall under his spell, I do remember those scenes of sort of me being the innocent and him teaching me, but then me gradually trying to sort of turn into him a little bit and all of that. So I do remember. And I think he gave me a bit of, was that the one? Yeah, I think he was getting me to do a bit. It felt like being Jedi trained. You know, I had to do a bit of all that stuff. So yeah, Christopher Villiers, I don't remember. He's very good looking, and he had nice chat. But he was just generally chatting about his career as well. I don't really remember him talking about Doctor Who much, but yeah, he was a lovely guy. Yeah.
So last time working with Paul McGann and India Fisher, you thought, was there any sort of farewell you were leaving? Was it just come into the studio, record, go home? Any throwaway, any party, any celebration?
Yeah, I do remember on the last day, Jason brought in. Actually, it was quite sad. Actually, at the end, I remember recording my last scene. So Kerry gets like turned into the devil and all that kind, which I love that stuff. I love that stuff. So that was all good. But I remember in the very, very parting scene, I was just like, I was really concentrating, trying to make it as good as I possibly could. And I remember looking over India in the next booth, and she was streaming. Her eyes, she just let it go, and she was just like, tears were streaming. So I was just like, oh my God. I was kind of a bit like, geez, wow. So that was really, really nice. I do remember Jason and Nick brought in some champagne for us both. And I remember standing in the little courtyard, and they took some pictures of us with champagne to relax, because you only remember the food and booze. So I remember that. But it was, you know, it's another recording day. You've been there two days. You kind of move on. Yeah, it was strange and bittersweet. I don't know. It was odd, but like it wasn't like it was. Had we done like a long, great big run and then we'd finished on this big thing, that would have been one thing. But like we hadn't seen each other for 2 years. We'd all moved on. This really just came out of nowhere. So it was kind of a lovely return. But then we were all off, and I just thought, well, I'm never doing this again, probably. So it was a bit bittersweet, but I'd sort of moved on a bit in a way by then, because I had to, because I didn't really think we were doing any more. But yeah, there was a bit of a farewell thing. They did give us a little bit of a farewell, which was nice.
Well, I'm certainly very glad that we got a proper ending for Chris. He certainly deserved it, and many years of enjoyment with you in the TARDIS.
Thank you.
So thank you for all you brought.
I have one question on the ending. Are you happy with the ending that you got? Because it's kind of a strange one in that it's not some heroic ending where you go off and sacrifice your life. You're sort of transformed in a way, like a Princess Astra Key to Time type
it's
scenario.
A bit like that. Yeah,
and it's very. I like it for that fact that it's so different. What about you? Were you satisfied? Do you recall?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to say because it's so mixed. Like you sort of it's just bittersweet. 'Cause it's like, oh, we had such a nice time. And I'm really glad they gave us an ending. But like, oh, it's ending. This party's over. I do feel mixed about it. I did like the fact they did go for this kind of whole hellscape thing, which I thought they did very well. Like, I think at one point the Doctor says it's like a Bosch, Hieronymus Bosch thing. So I like the atmosphere of the whole thing. I did like turning into the devil, and I think he does something to make sure he doesn't go destroy everybody, and I think he manages to kind of put it right and say his goodbyes before he goes, which I was grateful for. Yeah, I mean, you never want to go, and an ending's always sad. But I can only, to be honest, I can only just be grateful I got an ending at all. And it, they did promise me a big spectacular death, and they gave me that. So I'm very grateful for that. As it turned out, it wasn't the end after all. So it's not my last memory of Big Finish, and who knows, maybe I'll get to do more.
Fantastic. Listen, Conrad, thanks so much for your time. It's been great talking to you as always, and we need to do this again soon.
Anytime.
You had no right to tell them about the podcast. I was simply trying to prevent some boredom. What guarantee have you got that these audience members aren't going to review bomb us? Well, I had to take that risk. At least there's a chance they won't start cancelling us. Have you seen the audience yet? Have you spoken to them? I have subscribed them. And now I shall subscribe you. Always good to talk to Conrad, Philip?
Yeah, he's so much fun and depth of knowledge and understanding, and it's just great to chat with him, like lots of people.
Let's talk for a couple of minutes about what we've been listening to or watching. My list says it's actually your turn to tell me first. I was going to go, but the list. It's always the list.
Well, I've been listening to a lot of Big Finish, believe it or not. Just to get through all last month's range. But I am at the moment listening to The Living Darkness, which is the latest First Doctor story, Stephen Noonan and Peter Purves. I've still got an episode to go, but boy, I'm loving it. It is so good.
Oh, I haven't started it yet.
It is great. So, Peter Purves gets basically the first episode to himself with other cast members, but it opens up with just him, and as an old king, in an interesting situation, which I want no spoilers, but the first episode, and just having Peter Purves back, and his voice is so beautiful and so good, and then Stephen Noonan comes in, and Stephen just gets better and better as the First Doctor. It's a wonderful performance. There's some lovely scenes between him and Stephen, but also between Stephen and other characters as well. I'm just loving this First Doctor, and this is a interesting story. I'm still waiting to know why is the First Doctor meeting all his old companions. We don't know that yet. We may not know that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, the First Doctor range doesn't come out often enough, but it's a lovely treat at the start of the year. So I'm assuming it ends as well as it started. It's going to be a fantastic story to start the year.
Excellent. Can't wait.
What are you listening to, Dwayne?
Well, I had a listen to a BBC audio release that was released, I think on the 2nd of January. It was called House of Plastic, which is a Seventh Doctor adventure written by Mike Tucker and read and performed by Terry Malloy. So Seventh Doctor and Ace. And I love Autons, so the cover was fantastic. If you see, have you seen the cover for House of Plastic?
I've seen the cover. I do have it. I just haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, it's really worth a listen because it's not overly long. It's only about 75 minutes long, and it features the Autons in a modern setting. So a modern setting, so not Ace's modern. We're talking our modern, and it's a great study in how to make political statements without rubbing it in your face, because plastic is a great one to make political statements about. We all know the benefits and the disadvantages of plastic, in the world. And Mike does a great job at explaining all these and how the Nestines are using that to their advantage in their current invasion attempt is fantastic. Just in the title itself, and if you listen to the story, I won't give any spoilers away, but it's called House of Plastic, and it has some callbacks to the movie House of Wax from 1953, particularly the Vincent Price one. I don't think I've seen the other one, but yeah, it made me think of that. So he's dipped into that, which is fantastic too. Terry Malloy does a great job. What is it with all these actors who... I don't think I've heard anyone do Sylvester's voice right, because to me, I never hear the Scottish so much in Sylvester. There's something about his voice that's not so Scottish, as everyone rolls the R's and puts a lot more in to their Scottish Sylvester than Sylvester does himself. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, a bit. So I haven't heard a lot of people doing him, so haven't paid a lot of attention. Because I tend not to listen to the books as much.
Yeah, well, if you've got House of Plastic, check that out. It's a great one. Highly recommended.
Excellent. I will have a listen.
All right. So, of course, we've got Matthew Waterhouse coming in barely weeks, a couple of months' time, middle of March. You've got Janet Fielding in Canberra. For all you Canberra fans, head over to sirensofaudio.com. Grab your tickets for that now. And
there's quite a few silly people travelling down too. So,
is there?
Yeah.
Well, it's not far.
So it's not far. It's only a 3-hour drive.
Not far to come from Melbourne too, to be honest, or Adelaide, if you ask me. But I do a bit of driving. All right, that'll do us for this instalment of the Sirens of Audio. Philip, it's been great to be in your company.
Great to see you, and great to be Conrad as well. So it's been a great night.
Yes. Thank you to you, thank you to Conrad, and thank you to everyone for listening and watching. We'll catch you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, Death of a Doctor Who Companion, with our guest Conrad Westmaas and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or you can find us on all our social media at Audio Sirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.